That's pretty big. Ohio State going against Notre Dame. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, coming up at 3:25.
Now, joining us today during happy hour, and I hope we get a chance to spend extended hours with our guest during happy hour, former Ravens lineman, a former NFL lineman who resides in Rochester, former Syracuse lineman, Adam Terry will be in the house.
Adam Terry, second-round pick of the Ravens, played with Ray Lewis, just an important part of that Ravens offense.
John Harbaugh was his coach.
Yeah.
I mean, can we get some insight as to what the team is hearing going into this game? What's the mood, the tone? How's it all coming together?
We can also ask him, because he covers Syracuse football here, where do the Orange go from here? I don't think we're all shocked that the quarterback is going into the NFL draft, but can Syracuse now maintain this? Can they really be a player in college football next year? Adam Terry, former Syracuse and Baltimore Raven player, will be joining us in the 5 o'clock hour today. Danger, he's probably the only Raven that we like. I'll just kind of say that, all right? Today.
Hey, yes, absolutely. And by the way, we're better with you as a part of the show. If you want to join us.
Back before prior to Tyler Bass in Buffalo.
Greatness.
Greatness. Define greatness.
I mean, we don't. If you're going to be bad, we don't want you to be bad. We want you to be historically bad. We want you to be really great at being bad, and that's what Nathan Peterman was to the Buffalo Bills.
I mean, if you were going to be paying up a bet where you're not a Bills fan and you do this, that would be the one to choose there.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate Pete stopping by. We know we're going to have more regulars stopping by throughout the course of the afternoon here on the Fan Rochester. We're at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. Don't forget, as Gino mentioned, get a 4-pack to go for game day on Sunday of the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition. Is only available here while it lasts. I'm enjoying some right now. We encourage you to stop out and enjoy some yourself. Again, we are here until 6 o'clock. All right, I believe the table is set. We could start maybe with the injury report for the Buffalo Bills today, Gino. Not really anything to report other than questionable for Ray Davis, but he's trending in a direction where you could see him clearing protocol by the time we get to Sunday.
Yeah, the way this works is that you go through the entire week of practice, including tomorrow being a walkthrough that's closed, and if you get to that point on Sunday and he wakes up Sunday morning and there's no after effects from the concussion he suffered, the Bills can make that choice to activate him. Certainly that is a possibility. The one thing that I'm kind of thinking that this is a little bit of injury haze, it's out of Baltimore where Zay Flowers hasn't practiced all week, but certainly John Harbaugh is not going to rule him out at this point, says it doesn't matter, he still could play on Sunday. I would be very surprised if, for 2 weeks, Zay Flowers hasn't practiced and he would actually be out there.
The other bit of news today revolving around the Buffalo Bills, behind the scenes, Joe Brady got interviewed by the New Orleans Saints today.
How prepared could you possibly be? Hey, Joe, are you interested? Yeah. What would you do? Guess the talk. I mean, you couldn't go diving into anything.
Right. The thing that I think is interesting about this news is less that he interviewed with the Saints today. It's more that the Jags and Jets also requested permission to interview Brady, but he hasn't gotten to either one of those two teams. And maybe there's been no word on whether or not that would actually happen. So if he doesn't have that initial interview with any team this week, he's not eligible to have one until after the Bills are eliminated. So no interview for Joe Brady with the Jets, no interview for Joe Brady with the Jags, but he did interview today with the New Orleans Saints.
So we do have a GM signing today, too.
Oh.
Yeah, and I borderline Francesa, because we're not talking Tennessee Titans on this show.
Is it a borderline Francesa?
Oh, who cares?
Or a straight-up Francesa?
Well, I'm going to say borderline because if they have the number one pick, this is the guy now that's going to be dictating the draft. His name is Mike Borgonzi. Borgonzi is the assistant GM of the Chiefs. He's leaving for Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Tennessee following the route that the Bears took there. How'd that work out for them? Anybody who's had a cup of coffee with anybody at Kansas City gets to be a GM. There was an interesting piece, speaking of hiring coaches and GMs on ESPN today. I don't know if you saw this or not. And it starts with the conversation in Chicago and who they're looking to, who they're potentially interviewing and looking to hire. The influence that agents of coaches and GMs have and the packaging of these deals that are happening because teams are basically so, to distill it down, teams are so clueless as to what they want for a GM or a head coach that and we've heard this, you'll hire a consulting firm or you'll just listen to what the agent says and say, you know what, you have the GM and the head coach, let's bring them both in. And that's what happened in Chicago. I believe the Jets have a similar kind of situation going on when they were there with Salah and with Douglas. So it's almost like a path of least resistance thing for these teams where they find an agent who represents both a GM and a head coach and they hire them both with the same representation.
I think that's playing with fire.
And it's gotten to the point. It's gotten to the point so much so that yes, it is playing with fire because it goes against everything that the NFL is trying to show here in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of the rules that they've set up in place. Turns out maybe you don't really need to be the most qualified person. You just have to have the best representation to get this job with this NFL team.
Danger, it's business. It's big business.
Yes.
I go back to Christmas morning where, okay, it's the downtime for the NFL, right? At least for a few hours in terms of the news cycle until we get to the kickoff. No, Christmas morning, hey, we're reporting that Pete Carroll is interested in the... Well, this is the agent and this is quid pro quo stuff, and there's a lot of this that goes behind the scenes, and I think it's kind of one of the underreported things. I think everybody should know who represents whom. What's going on here? It's kind of the dark web, if you will, of NFL reporting.
Hey, the Dolphins also will be playing in Madrid. We learned Indianapolis will play in Berlin. The Dolphins will be the team that has been selected to play at Bernabeu Stadium in Madrid.
So I would love it if the Bills-Dolphins went over there because that would be a Bills road game. We now know that. But do the Bills still have a chance to be one of these teams to give up a home game? Absolutely. Because the NFL said they would like to have 8 games go abroad. Right now, they've named 5. They've named 3 in London.
Yeah.
They've named the one in Germany,
Berlin.
and now the one in Madrid. We've had these rumors that there's going to be a game in Dublin. Maybe they go back to Brazil. Who would be most likely? And I just go to who's the team that has gone the longest since being tapped? Would you believe it's been since 2013 since the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone out of the country? So the Steelers are right at the top of the list. Second on the AFC is actually Cleveland.
Okay.
Sorry if we got to export that product.
But they're going to London next year. Cleveland will be.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the Steelers in Dublin, it feels like that's what they're waiting for. The Rooney's in Dublin, and that makes a lot of sense. There was also a comment today that's making the rounds from Goodell that, hey, an 18-game schedule seems like the next logical step. Of course it seems like the next, because it's one more than 17 games. Yeah, yes, and then after that it will be 19 games, and then it will be 20 games, and we'll have players with an average lifespan of 45 years old because of CTE and 4 bye weeks.
It's fascinating to me that you are negotiating this over really a decade. Like, honestly, this, which is great. We don't have to talk about labor issues. Not that I would on a day like today. But since you brought it up, it's okay until the year 2030. The NFLPA said, okay, you know what? Check back in 2030. You could best believe by the time we get to 2031, we're going to be at the 18-game regular season.
All right, Gino, let's talk a little bit about Sunday, because I made an appearance this morning on the break room on CMF.
What'd you say?
And I went bold. I went bold for Sunday. I can lay it all out for you if you'd like. I don't want to overhype Sunday, but this is a matchup that is going to be better than any matchup you're going to see for the remainder of the postseason, and that includes the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Think about the matchups that are. I mean, this Bills-Ravens is a superior matchup to even Bills-Chiefs or Ravens-Chiefs. This is a better matchup in terms of just matchups. This is it. This is the game. And the narrative on Lamar Jackson is simple. He does great in the regular season, but he can't get it done in the playoffs. Jackson has never had Derrick Henry in his backfield during the postseason. No Zay Flowers. We assume no Zay Flowers, right? Coach is saying, he still has a chance. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't even need to pass if you're Todd Monken, who still has to answer for abandoning the run in last year's AFC Championship game against Kansas City. What about a weapon like Mark Andrews? Well, you have Matt Milano who can shut him down. Keep an eye on Isaiah Likely. That's the guy in the middle of the field who I believe could hurt Buffalo if the Ravens end up passing the ball. Many could say that the Bills have overachieved this season defensively. They get a lot of turnovers. And going into this game, it's a defense that feels disrespected. Big plays are going to happen. But can you take the ball away? Can you keep the Ravens out of the end zone? Can you steal a possession? Can you get off the field on third down? This is the point that they've been listening to. This is the point that they're hearing. I think they can for this season with James Cook, Ty Johnson, and Ray Davis, who I think will be playing on Sunday. Marlon Humphrey likely draws Amari Cooper. But you still have Shakir. You have your tight ends. You have Keon Coleman. You have your running backs in the passing game. This offense has made scoring 30 points look routine. The weather. There's a lot being made about the weather, Gino. It's going to be cold. It's going to be miserable. And we know that Western New York cold is not Baltimore cold. No one wants to play in Buffalo in the month of January. And that's just the way we want it. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick showing up before the game to get everybody frothy and fired up. And everyone who throws a prediction on this game is going to call it tight. I get it. A field goal this way or that way is going to win the game. And I don't know that this game will live up to all of the hype, but if I may be so bold, if you feel disrespected by the Bills being home underdogs, how do you think they feel? I think they're going to play with a chip. I think they're going to win by 2 scores.
Wow.
31-17 Bills.
Wow. As they would say on the break room of blue.
Yes.
Blue.
Tommy didn't even predict blue. I did.
Wow.
Go bold. I mean, look, before the season started, I was wrong about this team. I thought they were an 8-win team. If I want to be wrong about them again, I'd rather be wrong about them blowing out the Ravens. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But this feels different. This year does feel different.
Oh, for sure.
You look at last year, they were injured. You look at the year before, there were, I'm just going to say, distractions off the field before the Cincinnati game. I've been saying it all week. I believe that the Bills have more pressure on them than the Ravens do. Not necessarily the team, but Sean McDermott. I don't think they're going to feel that pressure. I think they're loose. I think they're confident. I think they're pissed off that they're not getting the accolades that the Ravens are getting. And I think they're going to handle their business on Sunday.
They are hosting this game because they were the better team in the regular season.
Yes.
It's like we've all kind of skipped over that. And you can tape this, Dan DeLorean. We can run it back on Monday, see if I'm right. But if I had to say, what is the one key here? Okay, well, third down defense. No. You got to drill down a little further. Because third down defense means where's the ball going? It's going to go to the tight ends. And Justice Hill out of the backfield. So I'm looking at the 3 safeties here. Taron Johnson is the slot guy. Damar Hamlin, Taylor Rapp. Can those guys help the Bills get off the field? Because I do think with Milano, and I do think with the defensive line, Derrick Henry's going to get a few in this game.
Yes.
But he's not going to run for 199.
Agreed.
And sure, Lamar's going to make some plays. They're going to move the ball. But ultimately, when it gets down, say, inside the 40-yard line, can you force a stop? Can you force a long field goal? I'm looking at those 3 players. Those are the 3 key guys, in my opinion. On offense, I'm really confident that Josh Allen is not going to have the yips here.
Right. I mean, you've never gone into a playoff game of this magnitude not worried about your quarterback the way we are not worried about Josh's performance. We expect greatness because we've seen it all season long. We don't expect him to barf on his shoes at the last minute. Like, Josh Allen is so comfortable and so confident in this offense that it would be shocking for him to sort of revert back to his old ways. This is still a home game for the Buffalo Bills. And I know they don't like how the last 2 seasons have ended at home in this scenario. I just think that added amount of pressure actually plays to their benefit, and that's the fuel that they need to show everybody that they're wrong.
This team will be sky high if they get this. The city is going to be sky high, and it feels like, if you're Kansas City, look out. I would love it if Houston pulled off some miraculous upset. I'm not banking on that. I wouldn't suggest anyone kind of go into that. Certainly you're going to watch. Certainly you're going to hear a lot of fawning over the Chiefs, and they've earned it here. But the real test will come next week.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. We'll have action for you on the Fan Rochester. You can also hear action on our sister station, WCMF. This Sunday, we'll have some Amherst hockey this Sunday as well with the team in Hershey for a big game against the Bears. So we're excited for it. We know you're excited for it. Ryan Fitzpatrick leading the charge as your legend of the game. He's been primping and grooming and preparing the chest hair. He'll be shirtless out there in the freezing cold, like I know a lot of Bills fans will be. It's going to be an unbelievable scene, a great atmosphere, and man, we are fired up for the divisional round. Bills, Ravens, Sunday evening from Orchard Park.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Any other thoughts on any of these other matchups we have here this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I don't really know that I would bet money on Houston. I like that both Mixon and the defensive player that were both questionable going into this, they're both going to give it a go. And Houston defensively has some guys that can get to Mahomes. Their pass rush with Hunter, with Will Anderson, that's a formidable pass rush. And that's an offensive line that's been suspect throughout the course of the season. We hear Joe Tooney is going to start at left tackle. So that's the only thing about that game that I'm kind of curious about. Can Houston's defense affect Patrick Mahomes? And that if that happens, then maybe it's close, but it's still Kansas City at Arrowhead in the postseason. So I'm not going to hold my breath.
I'm going to take I'm chalky chalk, man, on Saturday. Like you're
going Ravens, you're going Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're going Lions. Chiefs,
no,
yes.
I'm not going Ravens.
Yes.
I picked earlier on Wednesday, I say the Bills in a low-scoring affair, 20-17. I will call that the final score. I was thinking the score of 23-20, the one-time masterstroke got the score right, but I don't want to go down that path. And then in the late game danger, I know the Rams outdoors are a little bit of a different team, but Matthew Stafford, the way he looks right now at age 35, playing his best football of his career, I think the Rams pull this off. And they've done it before. They won in Tampa, against Tom Brady. So they can go to Philadelphia on what's going to be kind of a miserable afternoon, use Kyron Williams, not turn the ball over, and they're the better coach team. I take the Rams in an upset.
Sean McVay is a different breed of cat, isn't he? I mean, like, that guy just perseveres. It doesn't really matter that you lose coordinators or you lose future Hall of Famers. He's just retooling, and even in years where you think they're going to be down, they're still pulling down double-digit wins and making playoff runs. I kind of like that pick. I kind of like the Rams over the Eagles. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to bet that Washington can beat Detroit. But man, that's a lot of fun. That's a fun game. I want to see a fun game on Saturday night between those two teams, knowing that Jaden Daniels has had the season that he has had and that Detroit is going to. And Detroit deserves a home playoff game where they can just, again, let loose and go absolutely berserk for their team. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great weekend of football, of course. Divisional round. We've dubbed it the greatest weekend of football on the schedule, on the calendar. It is the best. You get the best teams. Desperation, just highly competitive, really, really entertaining stuff. And then, oh, by the way, for a lot of people, a 3-day weekend. And then you get the national championship between Notre Dame and Ohio State on Monday night.
For us, not a 3-day weekend.
That's correct.
It's too big a game. We will be on Martin Luther King Day with you, 3 o'clock on Monday here on the Sports Bar.
All right, let's get to Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports. We'll talk a little bit more about this Bills-Ravens matchup from his eyes. We'll also maybe break the draft seal as well with Chris Trapasso, draft analyst at CBS Sports. Joining us next as we continue live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts. It's Friday Football Talk Live, the Sports Bar with Danger.
Point, and I believe in our players wholeheartedly, and I wouldn't want anybody else out there right now than them to go against this offense. I know our guys, they don't look at themselves that way. And I love that about them.
Baltimore remains a 1-point favorite, 6:30 the kickoff. Will join the game right after Amherst Hockey this coming Sunday. The game can be heard on CMF. Amherst Hockey tonight as they host Lehigh Valley. Our coverage will begin at 7. Sabres hosting Pittsburgh. Coverage of Sabres Hockey tonight on 96.5 WCMF. RIT looking for a win tonight at Robert Morris. We're live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Well, it's a huge honor. It really is, number one. And two is it's a team award. I think that, that's really what it recognizes is the staff that's around me, and not just the coaching staff, but the personnel staff, everyone in the building. This is being a head coach is a tough job, and it's a challenging job, and you're only able to do it when you have great people around you.
That's Bills head coach Sean McDermott accepting the Greasy Neal Award that we were discussing yesterday in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Welcome back. We are live, Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts. Live until 6 o'clock, another Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition. We've got the Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition here as well. You can score a 4-pack to go for game day on Sunday. This is the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA, which is available here only at Three Heads while it lasts. Freddy's Woodfire Pizza outside as well, serving up some pie. We are here until 6. Again, Three Heads Brewing, Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts.
Anybody before yesterday ever heard of Greasy Neal?
I mean, I spent some time on Urban Dictionary, but I didn't really realize that it was a football award, that he was a former football player.
No, he actually played for the Cincinnati Reds, and he played, he's just an all-around athlete in the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Greasy Neal back in the day.
Whatever you do, don't look up Greasy Knee or Greasy Neal on Urban Dictionary. When you said Neal, I thought Kneel. I didn't realize Neale, but that's what we're talking about, Greasy Neal and Sean McDermott winning that Coach of the Year honor and sharing the love throughout the organization. For the Buffalo Bills. Do we have a verdict on Chris Trapasso? Have you heard anything?
No, he confirmed for 325, so I guess we're having some issues just trying to connect to him, so hopefully we get that worked out.
All right, Dan DeLorean, you just let us know when you get Chris Trapasso on the blower, and we'll go to him live here from Three Heads, and we invite you to join us as well at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. That's a Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub wingman line.
You can also write to us on X, our handle, The Fan Rochester. Lou writing in, question, why are teams interviewing Arthur Smith for head coach? You could ask questions. I don't have an answer for you on that one, though.
Yeah, I think because he has head coaching experience. And I also think there's something to what, was kind of reported earlier today on ESPN. This thing that owners do where they talk to the agent of the head coach who also might represent a GM, and they look to kind of bundle them together, which has happened multiple times around the NFL. These owners, we call them aliens, right? We've called them aliens for years. They live a lifestyle that we can't possibly fathom. The working class can't possibly understand what these billionaire owners, how they live their life, how detached from actual reality they are. And one thing I can tell you is, if you ask them, what are you looking for out of your next GM? What are you looking for out of your next head coach? They're probably just going to give you stock answers. Oh, we need somebody that can work with the quarterback. Okay, what else? What else are you going to bring to the table? Like, what if you're a truly special candidate? And we mentioned Sean McVay last hour. Like, the story on Sean McVay is he met with Stan Kroenke, and Kroenke wouldn't let him leave the interview without agreeing to be their next head coach. That's the kind of head coach you want interviewing with your team.
Well, look at organizations that will hire the opposite of what they just came for. If you're a Raider fan, you know what I'm talking about. Back in the day, Al Davis, hey, we need some toughness. We need an offensive line coach, and Art Shell or Tom Cable or somebody like that. Oh, we need some bright young genius. Then you go over to Lane Kiffin. You're not exactly hiring the best head coach. You're just kind of going to the opposite and trying to fix a problem you think you have, where really, Danger, you shouldn't hire the best coordinator either. You should be the guy who can hire the guy who can set the standard when it comes to a culture. And you kind of forget, okay, was that a defensive coach or an offensive coach? John Harbaugh was special teams. How many people actually know that at this point?
Do you remember how bad the Rams were before they hired Sean McVay?
Yes, because one of our favorites was in charge.
That's right. It was our buddy Jeff Fisher. Remember?
I've been impressed with Brandon, and what he's done out of the backfield. And you got to deal with him in addition to Danny, and you got playmakers all around. So we have to play sound defense.
They were horrible.
We're on a record-setting pace with our punt team.
I want to say they were a 4-win team. Jeff Fisher's done. They bring in Sean McVay, and immediately things change. The fortunes reverse. So it can happen in the NFL, but you got to hire the right guy. And I think teams like the Jets and the Bears, I almost feel like they're interviewing as many people as they're interviewing just so they can say, no, we are diverse in our hiring process. We are going to interview all of these people. But the reality is they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what good looks like when they see it. So they end up just defaulting to what the agent of, Ryan Pohl's agent is the same agent as Matt Eberflus.
Oh,
right.
That's where this comes from. Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
And the agent that represented Shane Waldron was also the agent that represented Luke Getsy, their previous offense coordinator. You're going to the well all these times because you don't know. You just don't know what you're doing. It's dysfunction at its finest. And I fear the Jets and Woody Johnson are kind of the same way.
Do we get a hiring over the weekend? The NFL kind of frowns on that, Danger. They really want everybody to kind of go quiet. We want the focus on the games, which makes sense here. But you could certainly do it tonight. You could do it first thing Monday morning, or you could just have it kind of leak. And you know where I'm going with this. Like if Deion Sanders is going to be the guy in Dallas, why wouldn't they just make that hire right now?
Boy, that would be something.
Oh, it would be fantastic.
Boy, that would be something.
You and I are rooting for this, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because we want the chaos. We root for the chaos. We're just looking for it, and that would be chaotic. It would be beautiful and chaotic, and it would absolutely make them more relevant than any other team in the NFL. All right, we're going to check in now live with our buddy Chris Trapasso, who's good with his time to join us here. Friday Football Talk Live, playoff edition. Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts. And Chris, this is where it all started for all of us, right? Like we remember you being here and previewing the draft, our first time ever at Three Heads, and it's always fun. We always think of you when we're here live for Friday Football Talk Live. So thank you for making time to join us this afternoon and help preview this matchup here between the Bills and the Ravens.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that, and I promise at some point during this pre-draft process, which we're not there yet, but once we get there, I'll make it back out to Three Heads. The weather will be nicer. We can maybe even get outside a little bit and have a little reunion at Three Heads to talk draft in a couple months.
Yeah, Chris, you're the best. Always appreciate your time here. And, boy, we get the divisional matchup. Sky high in this matchup. The Bills and underdog. If this stands, it'll be the first time. So give us kind of the big picture here. What's your view here of Bills versus Ravens coming up Sunday night?
The big picture for me is that these are two very similar teams. That if you've watched anything this week on ESPN or NFL Network or just social media or even listening to you guys on the Sports Bar, a lot of it has been Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, okay. But then you got Derrick Henry, you got the Ravens offensive line, a pretty strong defense. I feel like the Bills match up well with that. I think I haven't heard the name James Cook once in any of that stuff. I mean, maybe you guys have brought him up, but 16 rushing touchdowns during the regular season. They go for over 200 yards against a really good Broncos front a week ago that had two second-team All-Pros, Zach Allen, Nick Bonito. They really were non-factors outside of Zach Allen's one sack of Josh Allen. So for everything that we've led into this game thinking, man, the Ravens are a favorite on the road. Bills underdog for the first time in 43 games at home. I think these teams, you can really look across the rosters. Maybe there's a little more name recognition on the Ravens roster, but in terms of how these teams are made up, their strengths, some of their weaknesses, I think are very, very similar.
Yeah, and you brought it up. I mean, like, you get these big, giant quarterback duels in the postseason, and very rarely do they live up to the hype. I mean, you could see the star of this game just as easily being Henry or Cook as it could be Allen or Jackson, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are teams that were second and third in rushing EP. Believe Josh Allen.
Bobby Babbitt at Sean McDermott. Bobby Babbitt at Sean McDermott do here. Are you sticking with the nickel? Are you sticking with the nickel here? Because Taron Johnson, one of the best in the game in that position. Or do you dare think about putting, taking him out and going 3 linebackers here, Chris? What do you think is the best course of action?
I think you have to go with 3 linebackers. The Bills have had this very unique, I'll call it a problem, but it's a good problem to have, where Dorian Williams filled in admirably for Matt Milano. And I know when he came back, I thought he deserved to still be on the field. They were playing some teams that wanted to throw the football, so he said, okay, maybe we trust Matt Milano more in coverage, and that certainly makes sense. So we haven't really seen that much of Dorian Williams, but at his, I don't want to say his size, he's not 250, 260, but he is a downhill thumper, and that's really where he thrived when he was playing for that long audition in place of the injured Matt Milano earlier in the season. So I think with Zay Flowers probably not going to play, you probably feel a little better if you're Sean McDermott to say, on way more snaps than we have at any point this season, we are going to run Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, and Dorian Williams on the field. We're going to play Dorian Williams almost in that Lorenzo Alexander role where he's going to almost look like an edge rusher, and he is just going to really try to take out or neutralize one of those outside blockers, whether it's Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews or a puller or a lead blocker, to free up some room for the defensive line and for Milano and Terrell Bernard to make those stops against the run. Because I'm not going to say that the Bills want Lamar Jackson to have a tremendous passing game, but in terms of game script, I think the Ravens are a little bit more less diverse in terms of what they can do. If the game script doesn't really go their way and it's a close game, they're down by 7, they're down by 10, and they don't feel as good about running the ball, that, of course, really gives an advantage to the Bills, who I think, like we said, can win it with the run game, the intermediate passing, the short passing, or even down the field, and, of course, Josh Allen running. They're not as dependent on the game script, I think, as the Ravens are. So stopping the run is certainly priority number 1 for the Bills in this game.
Okay, so Chris, I've been talking about this guy for the Ravens all week to the point where we have a listener saying, come on, who cares? Why are we spending so much time talking about a fullback? That's what Patrick Ricard, I think, means to this offense for the Baltimore Ravens, especially when you go back and look at week 4. And I know that the players are different for the Bills on defense, but Ricard was just blowing people up, which led to Henry having that massive game. Who can eat that block from Patrick Ricard in this Bills defense? How do you get it so that you can make those plays and stop Derrick Henry before he gets going, or Justice Hill for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Ricard, I'm looking at it here. He had 470 snaps at fullback this season. That has to be the most in the league. He had 495 last year. He is a bulldozer. He's around 300 pounds. I don't know if anyone outside of a defensive lineman is just going to totally blow him up, but if you had to ask me which linebacker, especially at this stage of his career, I would say Dorian Williams, whether that's kind of going low on him, almost treating him like he has the football, to just not allow him to get 2 and 3 yards down the field, I think will be huge. It is a staple of what the Ravens want to do, just as much, maybe even a little bit more than the Bills staple where they bring in Alec Anderson to have 2 tight ends. They really want to mash the football with Ricard as that lead blocker with Derrick Henry behind him. So I think Dorian Williams is probably a lot better suited than certainly Cam Lewis, who we had to see a lot of in that early game without Taron Johnson on the field. And for as good as Taron Johnson is, and for as hard as he fills some of those run lanes, he is smaller. So I think at like 6'2" and 235 pounds with a lot of speed, just a lot of velocity toward the football, I think that guy is Dorian Williams, who may not. I'll kind of go back to my draft roots that when I was probably on this show a few times, and we talked about Spencer Brown, that coming out of Northern Iowa, the COVID year, he didn't play his final season. There was no season in the FCS that year. Crazy athlete, like 6'8", barely over 300 pounds. We all talked about, like, this could be almost an all-pro caliber right tackle in a few years. Well, now it's a few years, and I think he's one of the most underrated, nastiest run blockers on the right side. Next to him, Osiris Torrance, kind of the same deal, where maybe he was a little bit more of a pro-ready prospect, but you want him to get a little bit stronger beyond just all the girth that he has. He's gotten to that level. And I think Connor McGovern, moving from guard to center, now he is a bigger, like one of the bigger centers in the NFL. So those three on the right side, Deion Dawkins, even now 30 years old, is really, I think, in the prime of his career. And David Edwards, who's, blocked in the Super Bowl and was from Wisconsin, where they certainly love to run the football. That's why you have this group that's really gelled all at the perfect time to not just be great pass protecting unit, but to be able to really, whether it's the Denver Broncos, and we'll see how it goes against the Baltimore Ravens, turn this and be an integral part of this Bills run game being the best of the Josh Allen era, and in a very weirdly underrated way, the most effective in terms of a EPA per rush measurement, the best in the entire NFL.
Chris, knowing that Todd Monken is probably going to want to run the football, we still have memories of him abandoning the run in the AFC Championship last year against Kansas City. How big of a loss is Zay Flowers? Is it a significant loss to that offense, or you just assume that they're going to try and run the ball as effectively as they can, and not having their top wide receiver is really not that big a deal?
It's a huge. Flowers is not big. When he's running wide open, whether it's underneath, at the intermediate level, or down the field, that's a huge help for any quarterback to have an elite level separator. That's what Zay Flower was. So I think to not have him in this game, he's also an extension of the run game with screens to the outside, where even if you're kind of containing him, he's still getting 6 or 7 yards. So I'm not thinking that the Ravens are going to be incapable of moving the football through the air, but this is kind of like taking away their Khalil Shakir, which would be a huge loss for the Bills had he not been playing in this game. And he gives you even a little bit more juice than Shakir in terms of just being able to get open and spring that big play after the catch, like we've seen Shakir do so frequently over the last 2 years in Buffalo. So, yeah, I still think they're going to be dedicated to the ground game, but no Zay Flowers certainly hinders this offense and what they can do through the air.
Are there any other matchups that you're looking at in this game, Chris? And I'll give you one that I think is, something we're going to be looking at for the Bills. Against Denver, they didn't really have any tight ends, right? They couldn't take advantage of it. Okay, now you're going up against Mark Andrews, and you're going up against Isaiah Likely, and it's a big test here for Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the linebackers too, which to me is really interesting, the dynamic here that, we've heard so much this week. You guys mentioned it. No Terrell Bernard, no Matt Milano in that earlier game against the Ravens. What I'm thinking about, too, is in that divisional round game against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, no Terrell Bernard. Right. And what I think was the biggest sign of what he does for this defense, maybe there's times where he's overmatched in the run game because he is a little bit smaller, but is when he returned for that Houston Texans game, and he probably wasn't 100%, Texans get out to the big lead, then they kind of roar back. Terrell Bernard makes a great play in zone coverage, really baits C.J. Stroud into a throw that he thinks is wide open over the middle, but really Bernard's waiting for it. It's that. It's all of the getting everyone set up, understanding what's coming based on the formation. I think he's probably one of the better cerebral linebackers in the game. So to have him on the field for a divisional round game, or like I said, to not have him against that Ravens team earlier, I think was huge. So to have not only the safeties, but down the seam, a really good coverage linebacker in Milano, someone who's almost always going to be in the right spot and understands how zone coverage works in this Sean McDermott scheme, that's Terrell Bernard. And then you just have the lightning speed of either Dorian Williams or someone that knows the scheme as well as anyone in Taron Johnson. So you're right, that will be a big part of this game without Zay Flowers.
The defensive side of the ball for the Buffalo Bills come Sunday.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what the Ravens do with their power running game, with so many lead blockers, and they run a lot of like high school plays like trap and wham, where you let a defensive lineman kind of get upfield and then someone cuts them off from the backside. There's not a lot of defensive linemen can do on a specific play like that. They're almost designed to kind of lull the defensive line to sleep. It's like on that 85-yard touchdown that Derrick Henry had to open the game against Buffalo. It was Cam Lewis was late to his running lane. Balin Spector didn't get over the top. Like things like that. I'm not going to say that it will never happen in this game, but you're right that Terrell Bernard understanding, hey, Matt, you stay out here because this might be an outside run based on the formation, or I need to fill this lane here between the center and the right guard. Just those little things, the positioning, I think even matters more than, how aggressive this group is. I think they'll be fired up, and it's not like Derrick Henry cannot be tackled. It's just you can't give him that runway because he is kind of like a runaway train. So just being in the way, making him stop his feet and cut will be a win for this Bills defense.
Chris, we got to ask you about Monday night, too, while you're here. Ohio State, Notre Dame, a 7-8. What do you think of this matchup? Who's coming out on top?
Probably Ohio State, just based on how much NFL talent they have. But for the Notre Dame fans out there, I thought Penn State was going to win in the semifinal game because they have more NFL caliber talent than Notre Dame. What Riley Leonard, to me, is he's just that pesky quarterback where you need a 3rd and 3, and you don't think he's going to probably complete a pass, and then he makes a great throw down the seam. It's 3rd and 7, everything's blanketed. He dives for a first down as a scrambler. He doesn't look like the fastest. He doesn't look like the most athletic. But when you have a quarterback like that, and even with some of the injuries that Notre Dame has, and a fair amount on the defensive side, no Riley Mills, no Ben Morrison, who might be their best defensive prospect at corner. They've just been able to really shore up their front seven. The secondary has played pretty well. Xavier Watts is probably going to be a 1st or a 2nd round pick at safety. So I think Notre Dame will stick around, and the longer they do, I think if you're an Ohio State fan, and if this game is not a relative blowout early, you start to get nervous because this Notre Dame team, since that Northern Iowa loss, has shown the ability to stay in and then make 1 or 2 key plays down the stretch to ultimately win a game.
Chris, it's great hearing your voice. We're going to talk to you certainly more as we get into draft season here. Love getting your perspective on the Bills and the Ravens. Let our audience know a little bit more about what you're working on at CBSSports.com that we can check out.
Yeah, leading into this divisional round, I don't want to get ahead of myself with the draft. I wrote today the 8 underrated young players of the divisional round. I picked one for each team. We talked a lot about Dorian Williams, and I could have selected him. I actually went with Osiris Torrance. I think he and David Edwards are like the unsung heroes of this Bills offensive line. You don't hear a lot about them, but you don't see them get called for too many penalties. They don't allow too many pressures. And to face Nnamdi Madubuike, also Michael Pierce, who's one of the biggest nose tackles in the league, a solid game from Osiris Torrance. And that doesn't mean he needs to not allow a pressure, but if he plays good football, if he's able to move that Baltimore defensive front like he did, I think a very good job against a stellar Denver defensive line a week ago, the Bills, the run game, and protecting Josh Allen would be huge. And to me, he's a vital piece to what they want to do with everything with the run game and with Josh Allen throwing the football down the field.
We're going to check it out, Chris. Yeah, thank you so much for the time. Enjoy the games this weekend, and let's get you on again in the sports bar real soon, bud. Enjoy.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
There he is, Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, giving us his breakdown of the divisional round matchup here between the Bills and the Ravens. We didn't get his prediction, but he's not really in the prediction game.
No. He's just kind of breaking it down. But look, you told me one way or another. I mean, it's right. That's what makes this game so great.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. We are live. In case you didn't know, we are at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts. Live until 6 o'clock. Friday Football Talk Live. It is the playoff edition. We've got Freddy's Woodfire Pizza outside. We've got the unbelievable Leaping Hazy IPA limited run playoff edition that is available only here at Three Heads. We invite you to come out, score a 4-pack to go for the game. on Sunday. We're going to come back with more next. We'll get to a round of shots before we get to happy hour, because special happy hour today live when we have a former NFL star here on our set, in Adam Terry, who was an offensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens, and might be able to give us a little insight as to how John Harbaugh is prepping his guys coming up here on Sunday. So we'll have Adam Terry during happy hour. We've got more on the way next. And of course, we have time for your calls. You can join us at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
I know.
Gene Battaglia.
I don't see a point-for-point game or a tie game, and Lamar's going to get the ball and lead a game-winning drive. It's either Ravens' big win or a Bills' close win, and I'm taking the Bills by a field goal.
All wine tastes the same.
You are a fool.
Wow! You're a sore loser. Greasy Neal, Mr. Belvedere.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan.
We are live. Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts. It is Friday Football Talk Live. We are gearing up for the divisional round playoff matchup between the Bills and the Ravens coming up here Sunday evening. And here at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue, you can score a 4-pack to go for game day on Sunday. The limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition. It is available only at Three Heads. And I know we got a lot of Bills fans here, but can we also say this is a great place to go if you want a pregame for the Amherst tonight as well. We've got some Amherst fans in the house. Big matchup tonight against Lehigh Valley. 3 games in 3 days for the Rochester Americans.
First place, Rochester
That's
Americans.
right, the first place Rochester Americans.
And I got to give a shout out to Greg. Here at Three Heads, they have heat.
Yes.
73 degrees.
We got to find out from Greg if we can hold on to that because it was reported today in the Rochester Business Journal by our friend Kevin O'Klubja that our building was actually sold. The transaction is cleared. We know who our new owners are of the building, but we still don't know if we have heat in our studio. In fact, I would venture to guess that the Dandalorian right now is wearing a heavy coat, maybe even wearing gloves in the studio there at High Falls.
We now have the tool to show. I mean, where would you put the over-under on the temperature? Mid-50s, right?
I mean, yesterday when we went outside after the show, it felt warmer outside than it did in studio. A big thanks to our gracious hosts here, Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. Come here for just unbelievable vibes. And the guy that brings it all together, the Minister of Mayhem, joining us now, Jeff Dale in the sports bar, noted Raiders fan.
Oh, I am a Raiders fan, but I'm going to make sure to get people on my side. Can you all help me out real quick right now? Hey! All right, now let's talk about.
Yeah. Well, you got to finish it. Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. There we go.
All right, yeah. Well, I'm a Raider fan still. It's like I'm not versed.
We got Ryan Fitzpatrick combing his chest hair. You're combing out your beard. I mean, it's one and the same.
Oh, he and I can have a beard off. It's happening.
Jeff, we've talked to you over the years here, and it would have been real nice that the Raiders actually got the number 1 overall pick, bud. What are you doing winning games on the stretch there?
I know. I love it. I love that we go on a win streak at the end of the year to go from like the second pick where we can get a guarantee. We're getting one of the quarterbacks. Now we're in 6th, and we don't get anything. And I love that. It is the greatest thing.
I will say this, and it's such an interesting situation that I just kind of want to watch and see how it unfolds. With Brady being a part owner, but being as involved as we hear he's being, and still doing the Fox gig and saying, even doubling down, saying, I'm going to honor my 10-year commitment with Fox. Like, well, at some point, somebody might view that as a conflict of interest. And to know that he's been kind of instrumental here in the hiring process and trying to figure out who your next head coach is going to be, man, if he's recruiting Ben Johnson, if you're Ben Johnson, hard to say no to a guy like Tom Brady recruiting you, especially knowing that you have a GM opening and you can have the kind of control that I think Ben Johnson wants with his first head coaching job.
Listen, I would love it, and for the one time in my life, I'm okay with Brady breaking the rules. Let's go Deflategate, we're going Coachgate, and we'll just enjoy it and embrace it. He's on my side this time, so giddy up.
Just a giant cheater. Still cheating, even in retirement.
Can you bring me back to that night? Because I'm not a fan of either team, but I felt so bad for you and every other Raider fan. It was one of those, what did I just watch? Are we just making up rules as we go along here?
So my wife had just started watching football at that point, and when that play happened and they went to a review, I got up and started to walk out of the room. She's like, where are you going? That's obviously a fumble. I'm like, honey, you just don't understand what it's like to be a Raider fan. And they announced, oh, no, it's an incomplete pass. And I went downstairs and cried and watched the rest of the game myself. And then she woke up the next morning going, what happened? And I'm just like, we're not talking. And I didn't talk to my wife for like 2 days after that game. And I made fun of all my Patriot fans that were at work. And I'm like, I know that you sat there immediately when that play happened and went, incomplete pass. No, you did not. Everyone knows that was a fumble. Their whole dynasty is based on a travesty. But now, full circle, we are going to get the shine, so bring it. Let's do it. Let's get a quarterback. Let's make it happen.
Now, you said something interesting to me off the air, and we've been spending time this week talking about the possibility of this happening in Dallas, but you actually said, no, give me Dion in Vegas. You would take Dion as your head coach in Vegas.
100%. I love the idea of what Antonio Pierce was supposed to be, but he just wasn't ready to be a coach. You need a culture builder. In Vegas right now, the Raiders they've been rudderless for 5 years before Al died, and then since. It's great that we have a new stadium. We have $70 million of cap space. We have no state income tax. We need a recruiter. Give me Dion. Give me Shador. If Shador can somehow come to us, we need a quarterback. I am so sick of Aiden O'Connell. I'm so sick of Gardner Minshew. We've had Rich Gannon, and since Rich Gannon, if you look at our quarterback room, even the Bills, before Josh Allen, would look and go, oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
And you guys have had some pretty awful quarterbacks, and you're better than we have been.
See, and again, Dion to Dallas, that would be enticing. I think we would all love it, but I just keep coming back to, well, does he want to coach his son? He's not going to go. Shador's not going to fall to Dallas in this draft. But could he fall to the Raiders at 6, or could the Raiders actually trade up there just a few slots and perhaps get him?
I've seen some drafts where he could fall to 6, and I'm okay with it. And to me, let's be honest, as compelling as Dion to Dallas is fun, Dion in Vegas, the Glitz King in the Glitz City, come on. That is like must-see TV.
Dion with any team makes them relevant immediately, win or lose. They're newsworthy. I mean, we weren't talking Colorado football before Dion got there, and let's face it, they haven't really won anything of significance, but he's a story.
He's swagger. And what has the Raiders missed? When they were dominant when I was a kid, they were all about swagger. Give me the swagger. Bring Dion there. I'm telling you, that TV show can continue. It would be must-see TV.
I would have thought Mark Davis at least would have had a little Al in him, because Al would have been all over this. But Mark is not.
Have you seen his haircut? Okay, Mark.
That's anti-swag.
He is, legitimately, he drives a car that's, from the 80s. And it's like, dude, you're a billionaire. Come on. You don't have to drive, a Maserati, but, get something from this decade. It's just awful. And how do you not have someone in your inner circle who looks and goes, that haircut's awful. That is just awful. I mean, it's a bowl cut mullet.
I say it all the time, though, Jeff. I mean, these billionaire owners, and I know that Davis isn't among the elite in terms of wealth in NFL owners, but they really live like aliens. They live a lifestyle that for us to even comprehend, it's impossible. They're so detached from reality. In Mark Davis's reality, he looks great with that haircut, man.
Well, you figure
chicks dig it.
He's a billionaire, and he's trying to think that his 20-something-year-old girlfriend likes him because of the haircut.
That's right.
And it's no, son. And let's also be honest, he's a billionaire whose dad was Al Davis. Yep. So, you've got 2 strikes right out of the gate. You're already in trouble. But anyways. I just also I need to just, for the record, if people listen to us when we talk in September, I believe someone on this radio show was saying that the Raiders are going to pick number 1. And I said no, and he laughed at me and said, we'll talk at the end of the season. Well, it is the end of the season, and I will just say, we're not picking number 1. Granted, we are picking 6, but we are not picking number 1. So there is that.
I should have bet you a beer. I could have gone and bought you a fine Leaping Hazy here.
You know it, baby. Yeah. All right.
One more Raider question for you, because, look, I don't want to look ahead to the offseason, Bills fans, but while we have Jeff here, Max Crosby on the block? Is he available?
Not yet. I think that it depends what happens in this offseason, because the other thing that I've seen is potentially if they pick up the kid from Penn State, and then if you get the 2 of them, and all of a sudden you're and then you have Wilkinson coming back next year, from his injury, that might become the most formidable defensive line in football. And regardless, even if we have a cruddy quarterback room, we're going to have a defense that makes it hard to score more than 20 points against us. If you get Ben Johnson, even with Aiden O'Connell, I think he can scrunch up 20 points. All of a sudden, we become a team.
Jeff Dale is the Minister of Mayhem here at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue, our gracious host. Jeff, I'm enjoying the playoff edition right now. And I got to tell you, man, it's outstanding. The Leaping Hazy throughout the course of the season was fantastic. What's delicious? Tell me what's new. What are people checking out when they come in the doors here at Three Heads?
Well, besides our smiling faces behind the bar, I would always say grab the Sprucifer while it's still here.
It's so good.
I love the Sprucifer. We have a good barrel-aged stout on right now. There's a ton of great beers. Honestly, if you like beer, just come in. We got at least 2 or 3 things for you. We're going to make your... Listen, the Bills beat us 51-3, and it took me 20-something years to get over that loss. But this team, it's hard not to get behind them. I want the Bills to win. I want them to win their Super Bowl. I want to have a big party in Western New York.
Yeah, I think everybody can get behind that, Jeff.
Wow.
And I didn't even tell you this, Gino. Celebrate a milestone. Jeff brought it up. He was like, "You just had a pretty significant birthday, didn't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." You know what I was drinking with the Brolos on Sunday as we were watching football? I grabbed the Sprucifer, blew them away. They had no idea what I'm like, you know what you're hitting right now.
We drop it right around December, right as we get into the holiday season, and usually we drink enough of it, so it's gone by January.
I love it.
Jeff, appreciate it. And look at the sun coming out. I mean, pretty soon that.
Can I do it one more time to do it right this time?
Do it right.
Hey! Let's go, Buffalo!
Yeah.
Bills by
a billion.
Okay, that's close, but all right, one more time I got to do it. Where would you rather be than right here?
Right now, baby. Jeff Dale, the Minister of Mayhem from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. As we continue live, it's a sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition. We are ready for Sunday. The Bills hosting the Ravens, 6:30 kickoff. We're going to be joined in the 5 o'clock hour, Jeff, by a former NFL player.
A former Raven.
Who might have some insight as to how John Harbaugh is preparing his guys for this game. Adam Terry is going to stop by. And for anybody that's never met Adam Terry or like, how will I know Adam Terry's here? How will I? No, you'll know. You'll know. He looks like an NFL lineman. He's going to join us during happy hour. Before we get to that, though, Gino, let's get to a round of shots beforehand.
Yeah, as this talk about Deion Sanders, we can kind of get into this as if you're looking for a clue, Danger, is Deion ready to leave Colorado? It's not like Colorado is stepping up to keep him. Okay. This report today.
Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. On 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, it's Mike Danger for Window.
Coach Sean McDermott addressing if the Bills' defensive line is outsized in this matchup.
Well, I guess we'll find out. There's really no way around it at this point, and I believe in our players wholeheartedly. And I wouldn't want anybody else out there right now than them to go against this offense. I know our guys. They don't look at themselves that way. And I love that about them.
Baltimore remains a 1-point favorite. Wide receiver Zay Flowers is listed as doubtful. Amherst Hockey tonight here on The Fan. They host Lehigh Valley, first of 3 games in 3 days. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. The Sabres tonight hosting Pittsburgh. Sabres hockey tonight on 96.5 WCMF. RIT is at Robert Morris. We're live from Three Heads Brewing. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Oh, McDermott saying they don't look at themselves that way. I mean, you look in the mirror, you're like, we're smaller than these guys. I mean, you really are hoping that heart comes into play in Sunday's game. I think it will, but there's no denying that there's a size advantage in favor of Baltimore here. When you talk about their offense versus the Bills' defense.
Yes, but you know what? The Bills' safeties, they can tackle. And I'm including Taron Johnson. Now, him filling the hole the way he did, fantastic against Denver. Just don't put your head down this time.
Right.
Look, McDermott's saying exactly the right thing. Like, I guess we'll find out. But I believe in these guys. Right. We'll find out. Danger, as we take a look at some of these other stories from around the world of sports.
Shots!
Whether or not Deion Sanders goes to the Dallas Cowboys, well, we'll find out eventually. But a new report suggesting that all is not well for Sanders in Colorado. Jane Slater reporting that Sanders met with his boss, that's the Colorado AD, Rick George, and asked him for additional NIL dollars for recruiting and for his staff. Sanders met with resistance. Careful here if you're Colorado, all right? In the last 15 years before Coach Prime, they won 5 or fewer games 14 of those 15 years. This past year, playing in the Big 12, a team finishing 9-4, 7-2 in that conference.
I wonder, though, if you're Rick George or if you're one of the educators at Colorado, if you see what's going on with Coach Prime, and while you can look at the record and be like, okay, yes, you've won us more football games, but is it worth the circus? And maybe they view it differently than we as fans. We love it. As fans, we love talking about Coach Prime and the swagger and the controversy and the players and everything that comes with the flash of Neon Deion, right? But I would also imagine that there are some stuffed shirts at Colorado that just turn their nose down at it and be like, this is still a higher educational institution, and we need to focus more on that than we need to worry about paying money to this guy.
Danger, that's true at every college in America.
Yes.
Honestly, it is, like to whatever degree. So, yes, there's certainly some of that. But if you're Rick George, that's like the quarterback-head coach relationship. If you're a college AD, you have to be right in line with the coach that brings you in the most money.
You know what they need, which I don't know that they have. They need a GM. They need an intermediary between the AD and the head coach, somebody to run the operation that can report directly to the AD, like you've seen other schools start to adopt here.
Well, and maybe that's part of it. When he's asking for additional NIL, understand that form.
It's, I think there's probably a little give and take when you're in that role, when you're an athletic director and you've got to deal with the educators, but you also know you got to put out a winning product, or you want to put out a winning product for your boosters. Tough spot to be in. And look, if Deion bolted to go to the NFL, we would all love it. We would all love it. He said over and over again he won't and he doesn't want to. So I wonder what that does to his credibility. If he does that, do we trust Deion Sanders in a new role? I mean, really, it's always been about the money, right? So follow the dollars on this one. And if he's not getting into Colorado in any way, shape, or form, he will get it elsewhere.
This story involving Penguin star Evgeny Malkin has taken a turn. Now, Malkin, the latest high-profile athlete to have his home broken into, right?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He came home this week, saw his place had been ransacked, and his 3 Stanley Cup rings stolen. Well, after the police came over to file a report, it was later in the week that he found the 3 rings somewhere else hidden in the home.
Oops.
Police investigating this still as a burglary. Penguins in Buffalo tonight, 7 o'clock on the Fan.
Explain that to me.
Well, I can explain. Like if you know somebody's coming, then you come back and you get it later. Like, for example, I once had a friend who had his laptop stolen, and they, we just did deductive reasoning and realized, like, as we were tracking him down, we realized, oh my gosh, the laptop is probably in the garbage, and there it was. Just kind of like, okay, I'm going to come back and get this later. So
you think the person who broke into Malkin's home took the rings, hid them to come back and get them at a later time?
Maybe. Yeah, it just seems kind of.
My mind went immediately to Malkin didn't know where his Stanley Cup rings were. He just misplaced them. Oops, sorry, but I did get broken into.
No, but there was other things, so it's not like, it is true that his home was burglarized. Jessica Pegula's out at the Australian Open.
What?
2:30 in the morning this took place, so none of us saw it. 7-seeded Pegula in the third round. Olga Danilovic of Serbia, 7-6-6-1. Olga, her dad played in the NBA for Golden State and a couple other teams. Her mentor is Novak Djokovic. Novak cheering from the stands again at 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. Also out is Naomi Osaka, who left her match. Well, they say it's always retired.
Now what the hell are we going to do? I mean, I was so into Australian Open women's tennis, and knowing that Osaka and Pegula are both out, who the hell am I rooting for now at 2:30 in the morning?
Ding. Ding. You give yourself a ding there, Dana.
What are you talking about, man? This is the Australian Open. This is one of the 4 majors in tennis.
Oh, who cares?
No?
No.
Oh, who cares?
Okay.
It's funny. I think it's a time of year, maybe because I kind of view the U.S. Open maybe a little bit differently, where I'm sad that summer's ending, but whenever it's on, that means football is starting. That means that football is back. Whenever Wimbledon is on, that means, hey, summer is here. It's the 4th of July. And the Australian Open is so out of context, I can't wrap my head around it. All right. Hot uniform talk here in the Sports Bar. Mike Danger.
Okay.
The Chicago Cubs have introduced a new alternate. Baby blue tops with a new logo, too. It's musically inspired.
Not that kind of blues. This kind of blues. You know what I'm saying?
I could imagine somebody at Three Heads like, why are they playing this music? Well,
this is hot uniform talk, baby. That's how we roll in the Sports Bar. Come on. This is my team.
The Cubs Sox play tribute to the blues anthem Sweet Home Chicago, also with a 6-string guitar stripe. Okay, Mike Danger, have you looked it up yet?
I have a friend just got underway, so this was part of the big launch of CubsCon and a big party that, went around this unveiling of the new uniform. I give it a thumbs up.
Danger, I know you have a friend in the Chicago Cubs front office because 2 months into this show, you scored tickets for the NLCS and your daughters didn't want to go. Don't you remember this? And I got permission to go with you, and I don't remember the reason why it didn't happen.
I went to... This was the World Series, right?
This was before, and I had to ask the executive producer for permission. You invited me on standby, but you ended up taking your oldest.
No, wait, hold on a second.
For the NLCS.
No, I went to the World Series. I didn't go to the NLCS. I said if they go to the NLCS against the Mets, we're going to go.
Okay.
That was what it was.
Yeah.
But when going to the World Series, I actually went to the World Series Game 6 in Cleveland in 2016, which was like, I don't know, maybe 2 months into the show, 3 months into the show that we had just launched in 2016. So, yes, I have a connection within the organization, and he was all about the CubsCon and the release of this new jersey, and I like it.
It's because the Cubs, going back to the 60s and 70s, used to wear the lighter blue on the road in particular.
I like the baby blue, man.
It's better than the Wrigleyville.
I hate the Wrigleyville. I don't like the City Connect jerseys for most teams. This one I can get behind. I think it's sweet. I'm all about it. And as they say, when you're born in Chicago, you're blessed and you're healed the first time you walk into Wrigley Field.
Oh, no, Big Time Brian is here.
Big Time Brian is here?
He's
don't,
here.
Don't Big Time Brian
I'm not going to Big Time
again.
him. Here he is. Can't big time Brian. No more big timing in 2025.
No, sir.
We've seen tributes over the years when someone passes, shrines are set up with flowers and pictures and whatnot. This one is a little different, but certainly appropriate. When the news broke about the passing of longtime Milwaukee Brewer announcer Bob Uecker, people started bringing beer cans to his statue located outside of the ballpark, many of those bringing the ones he did the commercial for, Miller Lite.
I love it. What a great tribute. I mean, we remember him for being Mr. Baseball, but I think what really made him Mr. Baseball was just his presence, the Miller Lite commercials, his appearance in Major League, just a bit outside. I mean, he was a showman. That was some fantastic stuff for years there from Bob Uecker. And I love that they're paying tribute to him in that way.
And, gosh, those commercials were great back in the day, too. It's been coming across my feed.
Oh, yeah.
What other athlete has that sense of humor?
I must be in the front row. You need more of that. You need more self-deprecation with professional athletes. Look, it's serious business. There's millions of dollars at stake, and they all have their own economy attached to their performance. A little self-deprecation, though. Hey, I must be in the front row. And he's back. What was the line that he had when he's up in the nosebleed?
He missed the tag.
He missed the tag. Man, rest in peace, Bob Uecker, an absolute legend, and I love that they're paying tribute by bringing Miller Lite beer cans to the statue outside of Miller Park. That is fantastic. A round of shots in the sports bar. As you can tell, we are live this afternoon until 6. Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. It is Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition. Bills-Ravens coming up Sunday night. We're talking about the game with Chris Trapasso last hour. We're going to talk about it some more here coming up during happy hour after 5 with our buddy Adam Terry, former Baltimore Raven offensive lineman. Great place also, by the way, to pregame if you're going to the Amerks tonight at Blue Cross Arena with Lehigh Valley in town. See a lot of our regulars here. You mentioned Big Time Brian. We know Greg is here. He brought us the thermometer so that we can bring it back to the studios at High Falls and actually see just how cold our studios are since they have been heated in, what are we saying, 2 months? No, longer. But now no heating or cooling.
Yeah, it's not a good time of year to be without heat.
That's right. Linda from Webster is here. We got our entire Odyssey crew here checking us out as well. So all good stuff here at Three Heads.
If you're thinking, boy, these guys wouldn't shame their landlord into getting them heat. No, we're not beneath that.
We will absolutely do that. Let's come back and talk a little bit more about this matchup on Sunday. Gino, Bills and Ravens, share our predictions. I know you gave yours earlier this week on BetQL. I gave mine this morning on the break room with CMF. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this matchup and why we believe the teams that we believe are going to win. We will get into that as we continue live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. It is Friday Football Talk Live on the Fan Rochester. Football Talk Live, the playoff edition, Danger and Battaglia. Man, we are geeked up and ready for Sunday evening. The Bills hosting the Ravens in the divisional round. We invite you to come out and join us here at Three Heads and score a 4-pack to go for game day of the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition, which is available only at Three Heads while they last. Big thanks to all of our regulars who are coming out today, too.
Brad in Rochester is here.
Yeah.
We've got the Gordon family, Ben and Brittany, and certainly Chris. Appreciate you guys very much. We've got our guy, Bill, coming out. Bill Hills, thank you for coming out, buddy. And, of course, Brian.
Big time Brian.
Well, he's big time Brian because I once upon a time big time did.
Yeah, absolutely big time. And Yacht Rock John is here as well. All of our regulars are stopping by, and we're going to be waiting here within the next few minutes. We'll be joined by Adam Terry, former Ravens offensive lineman.
When we're done with Adam, is he going to have us convinced that the Ravens are actually going to win this game?
Well,
maybe.
It's possible. It's possible. And maybe I'm sappy, and maybe I'm buying. I was just telling Brad in Rochester, maybe I'm buying in a little bit into what McDermott is selling. You know, to hear him say, like, yeah, they're big, but I like our guys. I like where we are. I wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, I kind of would like it if they were a little bit bigger to go up against this Ravens offensive line on defense, to go up against a Derrick Henry. But I love this matchup, man. This matchup to me on Sunday is the best possible matchup you could ask for what's left of these teams in the playoffs. And I'm including the Super Bowl. Any matchup you want to throw out there for the Super Bowl, I don't think it's going to live up to the matchup between the Ravens and the Bills on Sunday. And we all know what the narrative is on Lamar. He can get it done in the regular season. He can win his MVPs, but he can't get it done in the playoffs. This is the first postseason where Jackson has Derrick Henry in the backfield. We need to keep that in mind. There will be no Zay Flowers. I assume there will be no Zay Flowers. John Harbaugh has given us some coach speak, saying there's a chance. He hasn't practiced. And so you imagine, even if he were to give it a go, how effective is he really?
That's it. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, he's playing. Okay, you haven't practiced in 2 weeks with that knee injury. Look, you're worried about that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because we made fun of it for so long. Complimentary football. What does complimentary football really mean? But if the Bills are going to go out there with their version of ground and pound, 6 offensive linemen, not to mention Reggie Gilliam, and maybe you're going with the 2 tight ends. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, brought up a great point. Henry. James Cook scored 16 touchdowns this year.
Yes.
Ty Johnson is one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. He really is.
If this does get to a shootout, you can hang. Josh Allen this season is a more comfortable version of what we've seen through his career. He's a more confident quarterback. He doesn't feel at any moment that it's all on him, whereas in the past, he has felt that. Joe Brady deserves a lot of credit for just making sure that there's always someone open for Allen to hit. And if that's not there, well, then we see Josh put the cape on, make miracles happen like we saw last week against Denver on that 4th and 1 play, the pass to Ty Johnson at the back of the end zone. It feels like a different Bills team this year, Gino, and I know you feel the same way. I mean, the offense, their ability to maul teams in the run game. You mentioned James Cook, all of the touchdowns this year, that offensive line, the continuity. And it's not just Cook, it's also Ty Johnson, it's also Ray Davis, who is the only player on the Bills injury report with a questionable tag, but trending in the right direction, very easily could clear concussion protocol come Sunday.
Really, you just need Ray Davis to give James Cook a spell here. That's the way I kind of view it, because James Cook has his role, and if it's on 3rd down, then you're going to use Ty Johnson maybe in the slot. Maybe you put the 2 running backs out there. Ray Davis at this point of the season is your 3rd running back, and you don't need him on kick returns anymore because Codrington's fine.
Codrington is not on the injury report.
No.
Alec Anderson, not on the injury report.
Now, compare it to last year's divisional round against the Chiefs.
A mess.
Yeah, it was a complete mess.
And you also have an offense now in Buffalo that has made scoring 30 points look routine. And they're at home, where they haven't lost all season. Everyone is going to call this game tight. Everyone. a field goal from Tyler Bass, a field goal from Justin Tucker. That's what's going to take to win the game. I don't know that this game could live up to all the hype that it's been getting throughout the course of the week. But I know a lot of Bills fans take it personally to know that they're at home and they're an underdog. If you're a Bills fan and you take it personally, we know these guys are listening. We know this team hears the chatter. We know they feel disrespected for one reason or another. And I think it all shows up on a cold Sunday evening in Buffalo. And Buffalo cold is not Baltimore cold. This is going to be the coldest game Lamar Jackson has ever played in. I don't think he knows what he's in for.
Well, I kind of chuckled at the Roquan Smith quote where he just kind of pushed it off. And no, it's a factor in this game.
It is going to be a factor.
You should acknowledge it. If you're thinking, and we've seen this over the years, and if he's somewhere around here, Jeff. Like, you go back to the one year where the Raiders came in the AFC Championship game, and they're all in their short sleeves, and we're men, we're going to be out there, and I'm Howie Long, and then they got run over. Like, you don't understand what it's actually like until you're out there.
I have the Bills winning by 2 scores. 31-17. I know a lot of people will tell you, a lot of people will tell you a field goal, keep it close, it's going to be tight. I'm sorry. I'm going to be bold on this. I was bold at the beginning of the season and said, I don't know that they're making the playoffs. If I'm going to be wrong about them at the beginning of the season, I'm going to be wildly wrong about them at the end of the season if they lose this game. But I think they could actually win this game and win it at home with decisive fashion and take a trip to Kansas City to exercise some demons next week in the AFC Championship.
So when they're playing the song in the fourth quarter, is that happening with 10 minutes to go?
Bright side. Mr. Brightside. Absolutely. Everybody wants to hear that song in the fourth quarter.
Destiny is calling.
That's right. And it's different this year. It feels different this year. Now, I'm not immune to the idea that come Monday we could be talking about, okay, maybe it is the same old. But it does, at least going into this game, we can say unequivocally, it feels different with this team than it has in years past.
Absolutely, Danger. We invite you to come down. We are live. 3 Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue, the neighborhood of the arts. Our playoff edition here of Friday Football Talk Live, and they're doing their playoff edition here of the Leaping Hazy. How is yours?
It's fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. And every beer that they have here. I mean, we had the Minister of Mayhem on with us earlier this hour, and he laid it all out. I mean, if you just love beer, you've got to come to 3 Heads and enjoy one. And by the way, the Amerks are playing tonight. You'll hear the action on the Fan Rochester. Great place to pregame for Amerks in Lehigh Valley. Right here, 3 Heads. Stop out. We're here until 6 o'clock. Adam Terry, former NFL lineman, former Baltimore Raven lineman, is going to be stopping by here after 5 o'clock, and we'll get his takes on this matchup. We'll discuss a little bit about, a guy that knows what it's like to play for John Harbaugh. Let's talk about what that preparation is like in Baltimore leading up to this game coming up here on Sunday.
Kind of ask him, which playoff games was he actually in? He was there. He and Harbaugh were there 2 years. I guess we could look it up on Pro Football Reference there. But it's going to be a great football conversation. And also, if you're a Q's fan, we'll ask Adam, too, because Syracuse coming off their best season, in years here. The optimism is high, but now will the funnel be full back up? Who's going to quarterback this team next year?
Yeah, Adam Terry stopping by the sports bar here coming up during happy hour. We also have time for your calls, 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Find out about that on Sunday. Everyone else good to go. Head coach Sean McDermott addressing if the Bills should blitz Lamar Jackson.
There's certainly give and take, to both approaches. So he's unique for all the reasons that when you watch the television or the highlights every night, he's all over the TV screen. There's about 4 or 5 guys, Josh being one of them, Lamar being another, who are faces of the NFL right now, which and rightfully so.
For the Ravens, wide receiver Zay Flowers did not practice today. Flowers is listed as doubtful. Amherst hockey tonight on the Fan. They host Lehigh Valley. Our coverage will begin at 7. Sabres hosting Pittsburgh. That game on 96.5 WCMF. RIT men at Robert Morris. We're live from Three Heads Brewing. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Live from Three Heads Brewing.
We're back.
It's Football Friday.
It's Friday, Football Talk Live.
Playoff edition.
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Bills Ravens 6:30 Sunday Night Live right here.
Mike Danger.
You feel disrespected because this line moved. That entire locker room feels disrespected, and they hear everything that is being said about them. I'm here to tell you the Bills are going to win by 2 scores, 31-17. They get the 30 points like they traditionally do, and they win the game to go to Kansas City.
Oh my God.
I know.
Gene Battaglia.
I don't see a point-for-point game or a tie game, and Lamar's going to get the ball and lead a game-winning drive. It's either a Ravens big win or a Bills close win, and I'm taking the Bills by a field goal.
All wine tastes the same.
You are a fool.
Wow!
You're a sore loser. Greasy Neal, Mr. Belvedere.
95.7 FM and
And who better to get the insight here? Please welcome everyone. He is now one of us here in Rochester. A former second-round pick out of Syracuse University, a former Baltimore Raven. We won't hold that against him. Please welcome in Adam Terry to the Sports
Adam
Bar.
Terry. Man, it's good to see you. Thanks for making time for us, stopping by Three Heads to talk about this matchup. But how you been?
Hey, I'm fantastic. Anything from my first play-by-play guy that I got to sit next to in my career. So he taught me well. And
you cut your teeth next to this guy?
Oh, yeah.
And you are where you are, and he's where he is. How does that work out, Adam?
Yeah, when I'm stuck with this guy.
I know. Well, hey, anytime. Anytime. Friday night, excellent coaching now, so who knows?
We saw you on the sidelines this fall with McQuaid, and what a thrill that must be to be as involved with your son and his development in this game that we all love.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I think it's a great opportunity to give back, and in a specific situation where I get to be with my son and create memories. The first game I believe that you guys were at, he had a sack to win
Rush
the game.
Henrietta.
In the RH game, but overall it's just been a blessing, and I don't think we made it as far as we wanted to this year, but that's why you play the game, and that's what this segues into, is a game like this. I mean, it's win or go home, and for a team like Baltimore and Buffalo, they're trying to scratch the itch to get to the Super Bowl, and it'll be a fantastic opportunity by both, and I think it's predicated by who is the best quarterback during the game.
Who has the best quarterback, but you as a former offensive lineman must love this, where you have Baltimore with Derrick Henry and that 1-2 punch with Lamar, not to mention Justice Hill coming out of the backfield. But then you have Buffalo with 6 offensive linemen running that set. Is this just going to be as simple, Adam, as to who comes down to this, who's running the ball better?
Well, yeah, and to kind of go back to your 6 offensive linemen, I was one of the first ones to get it going many moons ago, and that's how you establish a run, right? You establish a run early, you start to lean on them late, and especially in a cold weather game like this, those Maseratis on the outside are going to have to go into the shop for a little while, and you're going to need the big hogs up front and be able to create a path. And you look at a guy like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are going to create a tough mismatch, right? It's one of those where they're going to get out and they're going to have their opportunity. It's just whether or not this Bills defense can step up and make some plays.
Well, you saw what they did last week against Pittsburgh, and we all kind of view Pittsburgh as a JV team the way they ended the season. We know that there's talent on that defense.
Sure.
No question about it, but there did appear to be a lot of discipline on that defense in terms of how they were defending Lamar and Derrick Henry. Is that a critical piece for Sean McDermott's defense is having the discipline to not be fooled by that RPO that they were so effective against Pittsburgh with last weekend.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if Pittsburgh's any good or Baltimore's any good. I mean, that's going to be a slobber knocker. You buckle that thing up, and you hope you put your mouthpiece, you buckle chin strap up tight, and you put your mouthpiece in, because that's just going to be a war. We've been good, they've been good, and you go into a playoffs like this, you don't know who's going to come out on top. But when you look at it, it's going to be alignment, assignment, technique football. It's going to be cold. The hits are going to feel a little bit harder. You fall on the ground. It's going to feel like concrete. So it's going to be the most disciplined team if they can go out there defensively and match up. I mean, Baltimore has the same dilemma, right?
Yeah.
A different style of quarterback, but definitely a dilemma in the sense of it's a big physical quarterback that you have to accommodate for. The biggest thing with this RPO game, and I think both teams run it, is you usually are able to take a guy away. You're defending against 11, but when you have a running quarterback, you're going against, or you take him away and you're going against 10, but then you add him in, and it's the full mix of whatever they can run. So RPO by Baltimore right now, it looks good, and I've seen, we see a couple different pictures of Allen jumping and doing those things. I was in the dome when Lamar Jackson jumped over, I believe, Antoine Cordy, and you can see the athleticism. You knew what he was capable of, but now you've just seen how he's developed as a quarterback.
How do the Ravens go about trying to slow down this Bills offense? Because for Josh Allen, it used to be, all right, we're going to keep the two safeties up high, and sooner or later he's going to make a mistake, but that hasn't been the case. So is there any answer here? How would the Ravens go about this?
This game to me is on the defense, right? I think it's going to be, you're going to have the ability to score, and whoever figures out, I don't even think it's necessarily who figures out who first. It's who's going to be disciplined, make the tackles. When a safety comes down and you've got a big guy bearing down on you, are you going to want to make the tackle? So the biggest thing in a game like this is the mentality of the defense, and you have to go in there saying, hey, I'm going to go tackle. It's not going to be an arm tackle. You're too late in the season for that. And when you hit somebody, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to feel that to the bone. And then, with everything that is entailed outside of the field when you go to Buffalo, Bills Mafia, everybody going, you're going to see guys up in the stands without shirt on, without clothes on, who knows? But it's just going to be one of those where I think, a home field advantage definitely goes in the direction of Buffalo.
Do you think, and I don't know how much you could prepare for this in the week leading up to the game, but it feels like in a matchup where it feels very tight, that something as small as, it's not small, but a penalty. I mean, penalties could be a factor in this game as well. The Bills have an advantage with that home field and that crowd being in full throat. What do you do as a lineman the week leading up to a game, knowing that you're going to have this to deal with to avoid those penalties, those costly false starts or holding penalties that you could see come Sunday?
Yeah, I think practice-wise, you're going to go in and you're going to crank up the tunes, right? You're going to create some white noise. You're going to make it as loud as possible in an atmosphere during practice. When I was in college, you would play against Tennessee and we'd play Rocky Top all week, and everybody in Syracuse would hate us for it. But you go down to Owings Mills and down in Baltimore for this, they're going to raise the garage doors in the indoor facility, make it as cold as possible, try to pump that in, turn the fans on, and then it's crank up the crowd noise. The interesting part is going to be, how I see it a little bit, is going to be Ronnie Stanley. Ronnie Stanley's had some penalty issues earlier in the season because of his stance, right? Most guys are down, forearm down.
They look for that beat, right? There's a beat that
not necessarily. Especially on him, I think where he gets a lot of penalties is he's got a more upright stance. right? So he's going to be a little bit more vertical. And what the official's looking for is, does the helmet break the belt line of the center?
Right.
And there was a couple games early in the season where he started getting a couple flags in a row. He didn't change anything, but, in a hostile environment like this, if you crowd up just a little bit and you're a little bit uncomfortable, that goes into does Von Miller get a jump on the edge? Things like that. But both are you look at a guy like Ronnie, he's an all-pro. He's a guy like that. It's just, those little nuances that you go into a game and you're trying to prep for, can you really get it dialed down? And, it's so late in the season. Are you going against a guy during practice that's really healthy? And is he giving you the reps that you're needed in order to match up into a game like this?
Adam Terry, our guest here in the Sports Bar, live from Three Heads Brewing. Invite you to come down here as we're live here up until 6 o'clock. Adam, you played for John Harbaugh. Give us some insight here. How's he getting these guys? What's he saying to these guys leading up to this game?
I think John will always say the right thing. I think he's kind of one of those CEO-type coaches. He was a special teams coach coming in from Philadelphia under the Andy Reid regime, and he's kind of the orchestrator, right? Then you've got to look at who the coordinators are, and that's always been the personality. That personality was always led by your key guys at different positions, and that would have been a Ray Lewis, or that would have been an Ed Reed, or that would have been a Terrell Suggs, and offensive side, and with Monken and what he's capable of doing for Baltimore, they're going to try to take away the energy early and the momentum early, and I don't know if you're going to be able to do that in that environment.
Unless Derrick Henry breaks off something big, right?
Yeah, but even still.
But I just think to myself, a guy like Monken still has to have some echoes of what happened in the AFC Championship. He was criticized for abandoning the run game.
Sure.
He didn't have Derrick Henry last year against Kansas City. Yeah. Different story this year in the postseason.
Yeah, if you're an offensive coordinator, you're coming up into Western New York and you're trying to win a football game, you're going to have to run the football. And whether it's an RPO style or whether it's just hand it off and pack as many guys onto the line of scrimmage and see if you can get one to break. I think that's going to be a scenario that Buffalo tries to hit. There's speed out of the backfield with Cook, and their offensive line is stout and solid, and they're going to move some people.
How did you feel as a player when you got to the postseason? Are you still primed to go, or is your body just, okay, I just got to kind of ride this out here for another week or two?
It's another notch, right? Like, you go through the season, and these are the ones where you do know that if you lose, you go home. You lose, your wife starts making plans to go somewhere warm. And for the most part, everybody gets very dialed in. And my last playoff game, we lose to Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. Pittsburgh then goes on and beats Arizona in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where our game plan was to run the football. If you start to get cute and go away from what you're trying to establish, yeah, you're going to have to throw the football. You're going to have to roll the quarterback out of the pocket. Things are going to break down. But when you get back to it, you're just going to have to spot the ball up, take 6, 7 offensive linemen. And in Baltimore scenario, they're going to bring in some bigger tight ends. And that I think is a little bit of the difference is when you line up with 6 or 7 offensive linemen and try to run the football, you take away some of those boots and the nakeds and quick pop passes. Where Baltimore, they're going to bring in bigger tight ends, an Andrews or a Likely, guys that can really block, and then take a kid like Patrick Ricard, a grown man like Pancake Pat, and get him out of the backfield. And those are the little nuances that's the chess match, right? How do you match up personnel? Can you match up with personnel? And, when somebody gets out of the backfield, how is a guy like Milano feeling? Can he get out there? We saw him last week against, I believe, Bo Nix. He was able to get out there fast. He looked great.
Yeah.
As you start to age, do you recover as fast? And, from my experience with guys that I played with that started to age, you don't know week by week. You're going to get 100% effort, but someday.
In your opinion, Adam, do they have anybody that can neutralize that guy? I mean, we were talking earlier to Chris Trapasso, who said, hey, maybe maybe if you get Dorian Williams out there and let Dorian Williams eat that block so you can free up somebody else to slow down Derrick Henry. Is that the strategy? Is that what Sean McDermott is thinking in terms of how his defense can neutralize that guy?
Yes, it's one of two ways. Either somebody's going to bull their neck and they're going to try to run downhill and put their sights on him and knock him back, or you're going to beat him with movement, right? You start in one spot, you finish in a different spot, and then those bigger guys, as it starts to get colder out and they get a little bit tired, do they just get a shoulder on them, right? Like, does Pat get a shoulder on somebody and then that leaves somebody else to run free? Like, that's the chess match of postseason football, is you've seen them once, right? And they had success. You're going to take a little snippet of that game plan, watch the rest of the film, different personnel coming into the game, or different personnel coming in parts of the season, and, how do you match up? What do you like? Is this going to work? Well, you've got a lot of guys who are going to put a lot of money that sit in film rooms, and they break that stuff down. So there's going to be some matchups that are going to be favorable for each side, and can you get out there and execute, right? So I'm looking forward to it. My household, my son's going to be, I think he's the only diehard Raven fan out in this area, but
loves his old man.
Hey, well, I was always favorable to the person that was paying me at that time.
Yeah,
I spent 5 years at Baltimore, but I was a fan of a couple other teams that were stroking the check.
Well, you live in the area. You're one of us here in Rochester. So just your observation of what you're seeing out of Buffalo, does this year feel different than in years past?
Does it feel – well, as I talk to any Bills fan, they've won the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. So – that's every circumstance I've ever run to preseason. Yeah, we won it. And then if you lose a game, well, hey, we're only going to have one loss this year. And then as it keeps going, but this is a little bit different. I think with Josh Allen at the helm, he's played extremely well. It's to me, it's these two, whether it's Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, whoever wins this game, I think gets that little bit of a nod forward to the MVP of the league. So it's definitely interesting. You've seen Josh Allen progress, and you've started to put some tools around him. But it's going to be that one where, are you healthy this game? Do you lose anybody? Is it a penalty? And to me, usually a game like this is a penalty, or it's a special teams play.
Or a turnover.
Right. I'm looking at a special teams play where you're, it's not going to – I don't think it's going to be a touchdown out of something like this, but is it one that swings it, a 30-yard return, and they get caught, and that just swings the momentum, and then it flips the field. So it's those guys get paid too. We don't really consider kickers and punters and those guys part of the team until they either do something extremely well or they do something really bad. But I think, Baltimore's always had a very solid special teams. And you look at a guy like Hollins running down the field. He's a starting wide receiver, but I believe he just broke Tasker's record, or he has the most special teams tackle in a year, something to that effect.
Oh, he's an unbelievable special teamer. Yeah, no question.
He's playing gunner. He's out there. So to me, it's going to be – it's going to be a pretty solid, pretty clean game, but those are going to be one of the differentiating factors that may not win it, but really pushes something forward.
Yeah, you played with Matt Stover, Justin Tucker. Now, listen, both teams have had – I hope this doesn't come down to a missed kick for either team. We don't want to see that. But Tyler Brass has missed 7 extra points. Justin Tucker's had some issues this year.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what's the confidence level right there heading into this game?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been down in Baltimore enough to really gauge that one. But I think when the head coach is a former special teams guy, hasn't made a move, right? Like either there was an injury there or there was something that nobody was talking about. He's still a prolific kicker. And if I have to choose somebody on that side of the ball, I think he's going to be one of the top 5 kickers that I'm going to call on, even historically.
Adam Terry is our guest in the Sports Bar as we continue live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the Arts. It's Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition. and you're gracious with your time. Can we hold you for a few more minutes? I want to get through this break.
I'm here.
I want to talk a little bit more when we come back about the importance of, and I want to get into your wheelhouse, offensive line, the importance of continuity, what the Bills have here offensive line-wise, the job that Aaron Cromer has done with this team, and the idea of Alec Anderson being kind of like this sixth offensive lineman / like weird hybrid tight end that they've employed to great success throughout the course of the season, and learn more about that. Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm here.
Adam Terry is joining us here, former Baltimore Raven, former NFL lineman, Rochesterian Adam Terry, as we continue live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. It is Friday Football Talk Live on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. 95.7 FM and
Abe is questionable. Everyone else good to go for Buffalo. Head coach Sean McDermott on the defensive line, if they're outsized in this matchup.
Well, I guess we'll find out. There's really no way around it at this point, and I believe in our players wholeheartedly, and I wouldn't want anybody else out there right now than them to go against this offense. I know our guys. They don't look at themselves that way. And I love that about them.
Baltimore remains a 1-point favorite. Wide receiver Zay Flowers did not practice today. He is doubtful. Rochester Americans are in first place. Tonight they host Lehigh Valley. Our coverage will begin at 7. Sabres hosting Pittsburgh tonight. Coverage for that game on 96.5 WCMF. RIT tonight playing at Robert Morris. We're live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Bills Mafia is undefeated, man. They're the best fans in the world, and just so awesome that we get a chance to play at home. We can't wait to kind of be side by side with them this weekend. And, you know, the game is going to be decided on the field, but they certainly are a big piece of every win that we have here.
Sean McDermott earlier on our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR in Buffalo, getting the fans riled up for Sunday evening in Orchard Park. The Bills hosting the Ravens in the divisional round of the AFC playoffs, and we welcome you back into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. We are live for Friday Football Talk Live. Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue, where you can stop by while we're here to score a 4-pack to go for game day on Sunday. The limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition. It is available only at Three Heads and only while they last. We've got Freddy's Woodfire Pizza outside, and we've got Adam Terry, former Baltimore Raven, former NFL lineman, current Rochesterian, joining us here in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. And Adam, before we went to break, I'm so fascinated to just get into the mind of a guy that played at the highest level for as many years as you did. And I personally don't think enough is being said about the importance of continuity, the importance of what the Bills have on their offensive line, not just this season, but last season, health-wise. They haven't been bitten by the injury bug. You've had the same offensive line coach in Aaron Cromer and the job that he's done, and you've got a guy on the left in Deion Dawkins who is just playing with attitude. How important is that continuity? How important is it that the Bills have had what they've had for the last couple of years here in front of Josh Allen?
I think it's huge. You start to go through a season, and there's these Cromer. I was coming out of college, and he was in the ranks then.
Yeah.
So, you know, a very well-respected guy throughout the NFL, knows what he's talking about. And the biggest thing is he can get the guys ready, but it is a guy at the left tackle position like Deion Dawkins, a leader that is going to walk the walk and talk the talk. So you look at those situations, and that's really all you can ask for out of an offensive lineman. And then, you know, off air we were talking about Alec Anderson, the tight end tackle.
Yeah.
Right, I played that position. I even wore 84 for a few games when we lost some tight ends. But that sixth guy that comes in, the most difficult thing out of that is, yes, you might be playing 20, 30 snaps a game, but it's coming off the bench, right? It's like that sixth man that's coming into a warm segment of, you know, 5 guys that are out there communicating well, and now you're rolling in like a specialist. So you're coming out on the field. It might be a different package. You may have not prepared for that blitz yet. So it becomes a little bit different.
And it's not necessarily a tip that you're going to run the ball. I mean, the Bills this year have shown with Anderson on the field, like, they can gouge you down the field in the pass game as well with Anderson on the field.
Yeah, and that sets up max protection, right? Like, there are those nuances of you bring it on, personnel should tip in a different way of like, hey, are you going to run the football? You bring 6 guys out there, you're probably going to run the football. But what it does do, if you're going to take a shot down the field, second down, first down, it allows you to max protect with guys that actually get paid to protect.
Adam Terry, our guest here. I want to ask you about Syracuse and all the excitement from this year, but we do have a question from the audience. A question that, this is Jimmy's question, a question I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times. What was it like to play with Ray Lewis?
Well, it's no, to me it was no. I was a young age in my life where you look around and he is the guy. He was the standard, right? Like in our world, it was like we always said, play like a Raven. Well, who was that guy? You had to play like Ray Lewis, and he was a guy that's going to go out there and no matter what. You had to match that intensity or you would feel the wrath. And the wrath of not being, getting yelled at or anything like that, but you might get a tap on the shoulder pad and you look up and, you've got 5'2" looking down at the barrel of the gun at you and you're like, hey, okay, you got to match that intensity. And, his work ethic, the thing that I think the best players don't get enough credit for is how they prepare. Right, like when you hear these stories, as of late of like a Luke Kuechly who could call out the play. I mean, Ray was that guy prior to it, and that was kind of as that passing game started to come along in the NFL. So you look at what that was and how he could coordinate and also lead people around him. You saw guys at Bart Scott. Like Bart wasn't the I'll turn my phone off after I say something like this because I'm going to get a text from him. But, he was a highly skilled guy. But when you play in a system like that with guys that can communicate, it just raises the level. Adalius Thomas before he went up to the Patriots. Guys like that you could plug and play and were very good players, but also that level and that expectation was raised. And then once they got there, they were dragging people along. I mean, Bart Scott was dragging people along in different positions. So when you have a guy like that, and especially on the defense, I said to my son last year, we watched the AFC Championship game down in Baltimore. I don't go back for a lot of games. I'll go down for practices and things like that because that's, you get to talk to guys. But to watch Roquan Smith, and I watched him play, and you could hear him hit. We were a couple rows back. They were gracious. They gave me nicer tickets. But the way that he played, that's the closest I've seen to a guy like Ray.
Yeah, he's a physical guy.
And I think Ray...
Bears let him go, by the way, Gene. I don't know if you know that or not, but the Bears let him.
Blew that one,
traded him.
I think a guy like Ray would say the same thing. There are few and far between guys that can do it in the pass game, do it in the run game, and then also be that emotional leader.
Was that the guy that you would say was the best player you had on your team, the best player that you played with during your career?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Ray, right?
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Like you're looking at a guy like Ed Reed, who
Hall of Famers. I mean, these guys are all spectacular.
I've got two buddies that are up for it right now. Willie Anderson, who came in from Cincinnati at the end of my career, and a guy like Marshall Yonda. They don't get enough credit. Offensive line's overworked and underappreciated most of the time.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like you guys, right?
Exactly right.
But it's a situation where those skill guys and they get all the pomp and circumstance. But you look at guys that are hardworking, have determination, and can build on a legacy. And that was the fun part of playing down there.
There is one guy that you played with still going. Are you surprised the longevity for Joe Flacco at?
I remember Joe's first big play. We talk about crowds. We're talking about crowds tomorrow. And we were going through the season prior, and we had Steve McNair. So Mac 9 was our quarterback. He got banged up. We had Kyle Bowler in as quarterback. So we were going through some transition. Troy Smith, the old Ohio State Heisman,
remember him,
was actually started to be the slated guy going into the season during OTAs and minicamps to be the guy. Mm-hmm. And he got injury or had an illness, and Joe just started, it's Joe Cool. He just kind of lumbered along, and he's in the periphery, and then all of a sudden he does a couple things that you're like, oh, wow, okay. This guy can sling, and he can do some different things. But it was, I think our first game against Cincinnati, he takes off, and he runs a lot faster than Peyton Manning, but it was one of those where we didn't have an expectation that he could run down the field, and he takes it around the right edge and goes down for a big play. And that was one where he had won the crowd over, right? It's a gladiator reference of you win the crowd, and he won the crowd. And it was after that, it was just one of those where he learned and he became that offensive guy down in Baltimore that created the legacy, and people learn from. And that segued right into a guy like Lamar Jackson having the ability to learn from a guy like that.
I was going to say, isn't that a testament to the job that Harbaugh has done? And look, we want the Bills to win on Sunday, but you can't look at a guy like John Harbaugh and say, like, oh, we don't respect that guy. That guy has won Super Bowls. Yeah. He's been doing it a long time. Yeah. I think a guy like Sean McDermott probably looks at a guy like John Harbaugh and says, that's what I aspire to be. If I can get a ring, I'm going to, you won't have to worry about me ever. And he's already got a pretty good resume that he's building here in Buffalo. But when you look at the difference between what they had in Joe Flacco and what Lamar Jackson is, I mean, that's a malleability as a head coach. I believe if you're a coach, you look at a player's strengths and you play to those strengths. You don't jam your philosophy on that player. It'd be very easy for a head coach to be like, I want a pocket passer. And that's not what Lamar Jackson is.
Sure. And you look at that, and we were talking about head coaches right now, and you look at what Harbaugh, he's been on the hot seat. And there's been points in time where, people aren't happy with what he's doing or people that are playing. I think there was grumblings about McDermott at some points during the past couple of years of like, we have enough, we should be winning. And, I think head coaching is great, and the meetings and messages and things and the hiring process is great. But that front office, if you don't have a front office behind you, if you don't have a guy like Brandon Beane.
Alignment.
If there's top to bottom, and you're starting to see that now. Like it's, I have a good friend of mine, Tom Telesco, was down. He was out at the San Diego Chargers. He was down in Vegas. He also happens to be my high school chemistry teacher's son-in-law.
Unreal
Combination. I met him at the age of 16 at a mini golf place. That's another story. But, a guy like that, he's got a lot, but they wanted to go in a direction where there's that alignment between the GM and Baltimore, historically, Ozzie Newsome. The legend. Wizard of Oz, he's a legend. And he knew who he was getting. He'd hit on some, he'd miss on some others. But for the most part, it's can you build through the draft? And do people want to come to your place and play? Like who? I don't want to say this in a derogatory term, but like who wants to play in Buffalo? Right? You can go to Miami.
No, they have to find their guys.
You got to find your guys, and those guys have to buy into what you're going to do. I wanted to come to Buffalo. They just didn't want me, right? At the end of my career. So, but it is.
That was the drought era Bills, though.
I think it was Cornell Green. I think they brought in that right. You're hearing about either camp. Right, like you're getting guys in, they want to be there, they want to do it, and that alignment from the coach up into the hierarchy of the GM, the president, and nowadays it's also the alignment of the owner. Like, are you going to allocate the funds in order to make sure that you're moving in the right direction? We went through that. When I say we, my experience down in Baltimore, we had the changeover in ownership, but from the top down, it is we want to win football games. It's not to look flashy. You walk into things and you're like, oh, this is nice, but it's not opulence of any form or fashion. It's like we want to win football games. What's gonna happen? And that could be a larger plane. That could be more recovery tubs. That could be better food, right? Like those are the things. And you look at the NFLPA checklist at the end of every season, and you get to see what people are excited about, what people aren't excited about. Number one, win football games. But number two, it's also, can I promote myself as a player, and do they have the things to keep me healthy throughout the year?
Adam Terry is our guest play for the Baltimore Ravens, and wearing his Syracuse hat, of course. You wear many hats, and one of them being you're the color commentator for the Orange. Adam, this year was so fun. Between the win at UNLV that was bonkers, beating Miami, you beat the Hurricanes, and then a bowl win. And the question is, that was a lot of fun. Does this set up the Orange, though? There's always this new world here. We're not sure how things are going to look next year.
Well, I remember sitting here. They did a preseason Syracuse meet Fran Brown. I've heard about Fran Brown. I've talked to people that have coached with Fran Brown, and the excitement that was surrounded that he was an old school guy, right? Had coached in a bunch of different places, but an old school guy, and one that was going to bring back not the way that it was, but discipline and accountability. You know, his slogan is DART, detailed accountability, and you just look at what that is, and it's been fun, right? You go into a game and you're like, is this going to be the game? I mean, they're a couple plays away from only winning one football game. And that one football game, we got a butt handed to us. That's the Pittsburgh game, and they did a great job on scouting Kyle McCord. But Kyle McCord bounced back from that and really catapulted us forward. And then, you know, he's instilled that the rest of DART is relentless and tough. I mean, that's who he wants. He wants guys that are going to go around, and it's not a slogan just to be a slogan. That's what's instilled. And, you know, you look at him now, and he's winning accolades as, you know, newcomer of the year and things of that nature. My biggest thing is I hope he says he loves Syracuse as much as he does, so that we can keep a guy like that around. And I think it's the alignment once again. If you've got, I don't want to say front office or management, but that's kind of what college football is.
The athletic director.
That's kind of what college football is turning into. In a couple years, it's going to look very similar to the NFL, if not already is. But it is the alignment. Are you going to get the facilities? And I think personality-wise, for a kid, you're either going to want money or you're going to want to win football games and try to promote yourself into the next level. And, you know, I think Syracuse is trying to gain traction in the NIL space. But if you're winning football games and guys want to go and play for a coach, that's the best part.
Quickly, what kind of pro is Kyle McCord going to be?
To me, he's going to be one of those sneaky guys, right? He's going to go to the East-West Shrine game. And I think he might get an invite from Jim Nagy afterwards to go to the Senior Bowl if he wants to go. And he's a guy that checks all the boxes, and beauty is going to lie in the eyes of the beholder. If he goes into a situation that, you know, he can wait a couple years, maybe 2-3 years, or not, right? Like, he's the most impressive guy I've ever seen play quarterback at Syracuse. You know, that's McNabb is that guy, but in this modern era, he's the most impressive because of what he can do. And he made, when you're that good, and we're talking about quarterbacks like a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen, when you're that good, you make everybody else around you better. The offensive line, that ball comes out faster, you look a lot better. Wide receivers, if that ball is there before you start to turn your head, and that defensive back can't get a beat on it, makes you look a lot better. But he's from my understanding and my interactions with the team, he's a very humble guy, but a very driven guy, and that's what you want. You want an accurate passer, somebody that can put you in the right positions, knows the personnel, and is going to get after you.
I assume you're watching the game at home Sunday night, those Ravens?
I'm probably going to, who knows, probably go to my wife's uncles, and they're diehard Bills fans, so, and my son will lose his voice. But it's great. At this point.
What it's all about.
But at this point in my life, I'm like, hey, I want to watch good football.
That's right.
Right? Like, you want to watch, like, to me, this is where you play all season, you keep some people healthy. It's one of those that you get into a game and you want to see a good football game. Nobody wants to see a BS football game, a blowout or anything. It makes you feel better, but then you go into next week, you're a little bit more inflated than you necessarily should be.
Sure.
And you've got to be dialed in every week and making sure that everybody gets healthy. And home field advantage is a legit thing during the playoffs.
Adam, man, it is great having you on with us. Thank you so much for making time for us this afternoon here in the Sports Bar. Adam Terry, Baltimore Raven, offensive lineman from back in the day, former NFL star, and of course, proud Rochesterian. Now you can still hear him on the call for Syracuse football as well, sharing his insight as we get ready for Sunday. It is the Bills and the Ravens at Highmark, 6:30. And you'll be able to hear that action after Amex Hockey on Sunday evening on the Fan Rochester. Big thank you to our gracious host, Gino Three Heads Brewing here on Atlantic Avenue.
Can't say thank you enough.
Yeah, as always, just great. We invite you to come out here. If you're a beer fan, this is the spot, and you can still score your 4-pack to go for game day of the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition. It is available only here at Three Heads. A big thank you to Adam Terry for giving us some of his time here during happy hour. Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports, who stopped by the sports bar earlier this afternoon as well. To Derek the Pizza Dude and Dylan Scott from the land that time forgot. The Dandalorian back at our studios right now, keeping us on the air. The bounty hunter of the finest audio in the galaxy. We appreciate you, pal. Have a great night. We've got Amerks Hockey coming up as they host Lehigh Valley coming up at 7. JR Sport Brief next on the Fan Rochester.